Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I am your host, Rudolph, joined as always by AJ Haefele. Probably too late to remind you to vote, depending on unless you're watching this live, in which case, if you haven't voted, what are you doing? Go vote. But I guess some of you probably don't live in America, so you all can't vote. But anyway.
You all can't vote in our elections.
I mean, I don't think anywhere else has elections right now, do they?
Not today. I would be surprised.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, not the point of today's show. Today's show, we're gonna do full election break. Let's break out polling data. Let's talk about Nebraska's 2nd congressional district and its electoral votes. Let's do the whole thing. Let's get into it. That could be where Ambrosio played. I don't know. It's somewhere in Nebraska. Anyway, as the title says, today we're going to be talking about Jared Bednar as the Avs head coach. We'll also dive into some of the defensemen and goaltenders around the league. But let's start with the big topic of Bednar. I
love these conversations because it's like somebody randomly has a realization and we're like, let's just talk about it.
Yeah, right.
Avs fans seem to have realized, I remember I tweeted this out at the end of last season, that barring something crazy happening, Jared Bednar would become the longest tenured Avalanche head coach ever. I think in about December.
Yep.
Crazy things happened. That season didn't finish. This next season hasn't started. We're going to get into December, and he's still going to be like 40 games back.
Yep. He could still become the Avs' longest tenured head coach in the coming season, though.
Depending on the length of it, and I can't imagine they play like a 35-game season.
Less than 40 just seems insane, yeah.
I feel pretty good about the idea that he's gonna take over the mantle from Bob Hartley.
That was almost the most surprising part to me, is that Bob Hartley had the longest tenure of an Avs coach.
And then you think about it, and you're like, the one thing that the Avs have never really done is keep a coach for very long.
Yeah.
Pierre Lacroix had a really quick trigger finger when it came to the coaches.
True.
And, not a criticism outside of the Tony Granato obsession. He turned over a Ferrari to a dude who wasn't licensed to drive a dump truck. So
I think CLD license is a little bit different there, but
CDL.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. What is it? A class? Is that dump trucks?
Yeah. I don't know. I would assume. Yeah. I would assume dump trucks and like semis are
the same. Yeah.
Yeah, they would have relatively similar.
Would make sense. Anyway, the longest being Hartley at 359 games. So that's 4 seasons, basically. A little bit more than 4 seasons of hockey.
Yeah.
And that guy won a Stanley Cup, which, I mean, look, the teams that Bob Hartley got to put on the ice and coach probably made his life a little bit easier.
Well,
but
you think so?
Just a touch. I mean, that the 2000-2001 team, pretty okay at hockey, I guess.
Decent.
But Bednar arguably could be moving into a team like that, but through most of his tenure so far has not had a team that good. I think we can agree there at least.
Yeah. I mean, you keep in mind Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic, Rob Blake, Adam Foote, all in their prime.
For a while, not prime.
Those guys were all in their primes still.
Yep.
Bork was obviously at the end, still had like a 50-point season.
Infusions from guys like Tanguay and Hayduk.
Yeah, Tanguay and Hayduk and Drury were all their young guys, all the young guns there. It was such a good team. The problem with that team was that its depth players, they were depth guys. Your Billy Niemedens and Dan Heinotes, Dave Reed, Stefan Yells, those types. Like they were really good at what they did, but they were depth guys. You and I went back and watched that run. We did it at the beginning of the pandemic. We did it on Twitch.
And it's like,
wow, a lot of you guys might remember that.
Sure does play a lot of hockey for this hockey team.
Yeah, that was the 96 team.
Yeah, it was, but
still. And like, I could not get over how much I liked John Clem's game. I was like, oh my God, this guy's so good. And so, oh my gosh, Sandis Ozolinsh was so good too.
Yeah, he's fun.
But that 01 team, it was almost shocking, like how quickly it dried up.
Yep.
And how little the guys beyond the top two lines in that series did
anything, man.
Yeah.
It was
like there was like that one goal where Jeff Odgers had the assist, and like that was it in that whole 7-game series. It was like that one big offensive contribution
from their depth.
Yeah. And like, obviously you're not kicking down the door being like, you guys need to score all the points, but they could have used a little something else
for sure.
Because they lived or died with the success of their top line in that series, and New Jersey got better depth scoring
by like a long shot. They were getting scoring from their whole lineup, and
and that was it was just interesting to go back and watch.
How much of that is coaching? How much of that is just a straight up lack of depth?
Yeah, well, and obviously, like, you lose Forsberg, that's a really big piece.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because like you like a guy like Ryan Precht and Drury, and even Ville Nieminen that was his most productive season. All those guys are nice players, and Drury was obviously huge in that run.
Yeah,
but not having Forsberg changed the whole
complexion of everything.
Yeah, that changed that whole series. But anyway, Bob Hartley did a pretty good job. Had a pretty good team. Mark Crawford, same thing. You look at both of, I think if you were to say, okay, who are the best coaches in Avs history, it starts with the guys that won cups, because how can you not?
Yeah. Crawford and Hartley.
Yeah.
Until Bednar wins a cup, it's hard to. And look, it's tough too, because winning a cup isn't all about the coach, of course. But
sure. It's something. It says something about him, but who knows what.
But at the end of the day, right now, there are two coaches in Avs history that have a cup. So that's a pretty defining factor. Looking on the whole, I would struggle to say that Bob Hartley was a better coach than Jared Bednar.
It's so difficult to compare them, because Bob Hartley had Stanley Cup caliber teams the entire time.
Right. And he
walked in and inherited a dynasty, mid-dynasty, and didn't screw it up. And he had, we went on to see, he had a good career. He had a good coaching career.
Yep.
And
well, I mean, that's the other conversation about this. Pretty much every Avs coach has, except for Waugh, has gone on to have some sort of continued coaching career in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Joe Sacco. Obviously, it's been in his assistant since then, where it was obvious if you go back and you watch those X's and O's teams, the Joe Sacco teams.
Yep,
they outperformed their talent level.
Yep,
but he was a terrible communicator, and his players hated him.
Yep,
and it's like what do? You know, like, okay, you understand the game. You're obviously you obviously have a great mind for it, but you have no feel for how to run a roster. You have no feel for how to run a bench during a game. Your players can't stand you. You clearly can't communicate on a level that you need to in order to be the CEO of a team, which is what a coach does.
Yep.
You know, he's gone on to a really successful assistant career because all he's had to do was worry about a very specific thing that he gets to be, you know, that he's good at.
In the assistant coaching category, you don't need some of those head coach communication abilities. You just need to be
definitely
like, look, this is how you run your penalty kill.
Yeah, right. and you're like, hey, this is what you do, structure wise. I thought Joe Sacco, from an X's and O's standpoint, you go back and you watch some of those teams, they were more competitive than I expected.
They play pretty tight, given that they were icing virtual nobodies on most of their defense.
And then go back and look at those rosters, and you're like, Jesus, this is rough.
The other part of this conversation in Avs coaching history is if you expand it out beyond what they did with the Avs, Joe Quenneville became a legendary coach outside of Colorado after he left.
A top 5 coach of all time.
Yeah. So,
and I think that I think if we were to talk about, is Jared Bednar the best Avs coach? Well, no. Which guy did the best coaching job with the Avs? It might be Quenneville.
Yeah.
Because 3 straight 95-point seasons while they were mid-transition from the Sakic-Forsberg era into they didn't know what was next.
Yeah. We're rebuilding for the first time ever.
Yeah. Oh my God, Francois Giguère took over the team and we want to start rebuilding through the draft. That was the first time Avs fans had ever heard that, was 2008.
Yep.
We want to start rebuilding through the draft. Oh, well, now we have the 3rd overall pick, and it's Matt Duchene, and we think we're off and running.
Yep.
And
didn't too great, but
we all know how that went. But if you look at what you look at the rosters that Quenneville was dealing with, the fact that he had 3 straight 95-point seasons and got to the second round both times he made the postseason in his first and third years. I mean, kudos. Like, those were not great teams, and he got into the second round each time.
Yeah, did work.
Which, as in Avalanche land was, you got to the second round. Congratulations. This is the most basic of everything.
Especially at that time in Avs history, it was the second round was almost a given for that team.
Yeah.
So
and now you look at it, and it's so funny to me because you see the guys who like hate Jared Bednar, and it's like, can't get out of the second round with them, and it's like, okay, well, first of all, getting to the second round is hard to do.
The last time the Avs got out of the second round was ages ago.
Yeah, exactly 8 teams make it to the second round, so it's not like, thanks, dude. I appreciate you voting for me. Getting out of the second round is not like a birthright for anybody. It's hard to do.
Yep.
The Avs have come
dangerously close.
2 years in a row, they basically have come as close as you can. They got close 2 years ago against San Jose, and then they inched forward and got into overtime of Game 7 before they lost.
Yep.
Like, they've gotten as close to getting out as you can. It's not like they got to the second round and got blown out. And I will say, under Bednar, that's one thing that has not happened, is they have not gotten smoked in any series.
Yeah. Even the Nashville series, they were competitive.
Yeah. You look back at the Nashville series with clearly the best team in the NHL that season in the Predators going against that Avs team that nobody had any expectations for. And through the first 4 games of that series, it was very, very close.
Yep.
Game 5 and Game 6 got away from them.
And I mean, that's part of the allure. Crawford and Hartley obviously had great playoff win percentages, but third on that list is Jared Bednar.
Yeah.
When it comes to the playoffs, Granato obviously struggled. Sacco was a disaster in the playoffs because the team just wasn't very good, and Wah obviously had the disappointing round 1 series against Minnesota, and that was it. So
yeah, I mean, Sacco against the Sharks in 2010 was even kind of an upstart. Like they had a 2-1 series lead against the number 1 seeded Sharks.
Yep.
Like that was they were in prime. Oh my God, is this going to happen territory? And then it didn't, but it was still, close. So, I think that when we talk about Bednar as a coach, and it's complicated, right? Like,
For sure. You can't just untangle the coach from the players and the team identity.
And I think he's done a good job. Like, he's had Nathan McKinnon and Mikko and blah blah blah, right?
Yep.
But on the flip side, like Patrick Waugh had Nathan McKinnon.
Yep. And Mikko Rantanen for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, he chose to bury Mikko.
Yep.
That first year, which not a criticism. Like, don't think that I'm saying he shouldn't have done that. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
It's real hard to ding Mikko Rantanen's development path with how it's gone. I'm not gonna second guess any of that. But you have to say, like, there was a switch that flipped with McKinnon under Bednar, and I don't necessarily know that it happened. I think it might have happened in that first year where the Avs were so god awful. Because if you think Nathan McKinnon had 55 points on the worst offense in a long, long time.
Yeah.
For him to have had a 55-point season on that team, looking back and knowing how it's gone, that might have been a little bit of a sign of things to come.
Yep.
But even then, the next season, through the first 10 games, he had 5 points.
It was iffy until he just exploded. Yeah.
Yeah, until that 11th game against Chicago, where they put that top line together, and Avs history has never been the same.
Well, I mean, he certainly has given the players the tools, and you're talking about even not this past year, but the year before, 18-19, he got a career year out of like half of his roster.
Yeah.
Gabe Landeskog was having a career year. Matt Calvert, career year. He has consistently brought the best out of his players.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
And look, you're dealing with somewhat small sample sizes here.
Totally.
But he's also, as we mentioned, going to become the longest tenured Avs coach pretty soon. So all the other coaches had small sample sizes to work with as well.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at like his career, like his points percentage, right, in his career.
Yeah.
And where is it in Avs history? It's 6th.
Yep.
Behind Granato, behind Waugh, Quenneville, Hartley, Crawford, all those guys. And in terms of Avs coaches, just Avs coaches, the only one that has a lower points percentage than Jared Bednar is Joe Sacco. Now, obviously,
even that's hard to dissect because of the first season he had.
There's a huge caveat here.
Right.
Because if you look at it, Sacco's points percentage, it's 514.
Yep.
Okay. So it's 514. Sacco's was 493. Bednar's is 514. The guys who are immediately ahead of him, Granato and Waugh, 560 and 577. Quenneville at 579. The last 3 years of Bednar's tenure, it's been 579, 549, and 657.
Yep.
So that would have put him right in the mix of all of that.
Yep.
He would have been right in there. But that 293 in his first year really drags him down. And it's in the same way that under Waugh, they had a
first year propped him up so much in Waugh's case, yeah.
Exactly. They had a 683 points percentage that year. And then after that, it was 549 and 500.
Yep.
So they got significantly worse under Waugh in the 3 years. When you talk about is Bednar the best Avs coach ever, he just doesn't have any of that. He hasn't won a division.
Yep.
I mean, if you care about this, he hasn't won the Jack Adams. He hasn't won an award. We've talked about how flawed that award is and why that shouldn't move your needle at all. But not the point. In terms of just raw accomplishments, well, he got to the second round a couple of times. Is it? You know, until he wins a division or a Stanley Cup or
at least make
pushes
the conference finals or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because they haven't been to the conference finals since 2002.
Yep.
We're talking about a 20-year drought. Not that getting to the conference finals is like,
yeah, that's not gonna really put anything in your trophy cabinet or anything.
Yeah, right. And like it's a nice accomplishment, but there have been a lot of one and dones that got there, and it was like, okay.
Yep.
Never to never be seen or heard from again. It's whatever. But I think with this year's team for expectations are higher than ever. I think at the very minimum, you've got to get to the second round. Like that's really when Colorado's season starts.
Yeah.
Get to the second round. They should, whatever's going to happen in the regular season, you just make it. And then they are equipped to get in and handle anybody in the West.
Yep. They
should be okay. And then they need to win. They need to get past that. They need to get into the conference finals. And then you have all of us. If you do that, then you have a coaching record where 3 years in a row you've gone second round conference finals.
That's pretty long. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Like you're in the middle of a really, really good run at that point because not a lot of teams have even that kind of sustained success. If you go and you just look at playoff history, teams don't advance that way. You don't, like I said, I say it all the time. You're not entitled to winning rounds in the postseason. It's hard to do.
Nothing's free for sure.
And it kind of blows me away the way that people have dismissed the Avs getting to the second round, where the same people who, after the Avs lost Game 3 against Arizona and were like, Darcy Kemper's going to steal the series, were suddenly, when the Avs, they were like, oh, well, they only won the first round series against 11th seeded Arizona.
Yeah.
And it's like, but a week ago, you said that these guys were going to lose the series to Darcy Kemper.
They also
now
dumpstered that team in every single game when it came to possession.
And it's like, okay, well, now they smoke them, and it's, well, that's not an impressive accomplishment. I would tend to agree that I'm not like, woo, beat those guys, but you can't have it both ways,
Yeah, true.
And when it comes to coaching, I'm always saying, if you can tell me where coaching ends and playing starts, then you're smarter than I am.
Well, then maybe you should be the guy awarding the Jack Adams.
Yeah, right. Because it's hard. It's hard to separate, oh, well, what are they getting coached to do? Because there are things that you and I, when we watch the game, oh, well, the power play is not very good. Yeah. And we watch the game and we see that there are guys who are they will make decisions that drive you crazy. And you're like, okay, well, he's not being coached to do that.
Yeah.
Like Nathan McKinnon just decided to pass the puck back to the middle of the ice with an open net.
Yeah. I guarantee you him to do that. Yeah.
Ray Bennett is not like, all right, Nate, 40 goal scorer. If you get the puck and the goalie's not in the net, I want you to pass it. I can guarantee you the power play coach is not doing that.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff where it muddies the waters. It's hard to decipher, what is pure system and what is player execution.
Yeah.
And there's plenty to criticize. This isn't to sit here and say Jared Bednar is flawless or amazing or without criticism. He obviously, as is every human being on the planet, is flawed. There are issues that we have taken and we've talked about a bunch over time. The guy's not perfect. He's not slam dunk the most amazing head coach ever, which is where the really, really nonsensical conversations always end up going. It's like, oh no, Jared Bednar is perfect. You can't criticize him, otherwise AJ will call you stupid. And it's like, it's not like that, guys. It's just the guy's proven that he's a really good head coach. And the ones who think that he's an idiot and should be fired don't really have a good leg to stand on.
I mean, I do there are only 5 coaches in the league that are longer tenured than Jared Bednar with their current team right now. So it is a position that turns over very quickly in the league.
Well, and we've talked about it on the show before that coach voice gets tuned out pretty quickly.
Yep. The players get tired of hearing the same stuff. Sure.
It's got like a 3 to 5 year window unless you're in a special situation where something's really, really working for you. Bednar's in year 4, so that's something I'm keeping my eye on is how does this group, and I think it will help. I think it will help that there's been a lot of turnover on the roster over the last couple of years, so it's not the same exact group going in, year out with the same exact message and not getting there. They've changed over enough of the roster that the message I think is still fresh with enough of the new guys. And with younger guys we're expecting a lot of young guys to come in and break in. As long as your leadership group is still buying in, I think they have a chance to continue to make the message work. But you look at like a Pittsburgh, where they would have a lot of the same
year after year, yeah.
8 to 12 guys made up the same part of the roster every single year. Now, that's half your locker room that's been hearing the same message over and over and over and over and over and over. At some point, it's going to get tuned out. It just is. It's how it goes.
Yep.
So with Bednar, that's something I'm keeping an eye on in the next couple of years. How does the team continue to respond to him? Do they continue to buy in?
The other side of that coin is just this year, the longest standing NHL head coach and John Cooper finally got over the hump with Tampa Bay.
And that's, where Tampa Bay gets credit is they didn't overreact to extreme situations. They said, look, this guy is still producing for us. He is still getting the job done. We're still a top 3 seed out east every single year. We're still a juggernaut. We still kick everyone's ass more often than not.
After getting punked in the first round by Columbus, they stuck to their guns and it worked for them.
Right. And there's credit there because that's when you make the move.
Yep.
That's when you panic. And they stayed true to it. And John Cooper, like that guy's a great head coach.
Yep.
And even then, you talk to Tampa Bay fans, and they'll all have their frustrations with him. Oh, well, he overvalues Alex Killorn. He doesn't do this or he doesn't do that. Whatever it is, right? Every coach has the thing that drives fans crazy.
Yep.
That doesn't mean you fire the guy and try and go find somebody better. I would say that the last 2 years there has been abnormal depth on the coaching market at times.
For sure.
Because Joel Quenneville, Peter Laviolette, Gerard Gallant, those guys have all been on the market in the last year.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's one where you're looking at those kinds of track records and you're like, damn, dude. Those are pretty good coaches.
I mean, part of the reason I also draw the similarities to John Cooper, he and Bednar both came up the same way. They were not part of that NHL, I guess you can call it an old boys club. I don't know what to call it exactly, but they were not on the carousel of rotating NHL jobs. These were guys that coached their way up through the minor leagues and eventually made it to the NHL level.
Well, and they both won at lower levels.
Right, exactly.
And that's where you just wonder, can Bednar get over that hump?
Yep.
Because I think that no matter how it ends with Colorado, cup or no cup, this is not his last NHL coaching job.
The only way it's his last NHL coaching job is the Avs extend him till the end of time, basically.
Right. I mean, that's it. He's proven himself way too good of a coach to not be picked up quickly whenever the relationship does come to an end. I mean, it's inevitable. All coaching all coaches have to move on at some point.
Eventually things go sideways for sure.
So the question, can they kind of defy time? Can they 4 years, that's a good run for a coach. Coaches typically get 3 to 5 year contracts, kind of depending on the situation and the coach. Once you start getting into second, third contracts, you're in a good situation. Yep. And right now, Jared Bednar's in no threat. There is no conversation about getting rid of him.
There shouldn't be. So it's Speaking of time, we're half an hour into the show, so we do need to acknowledge Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR, which you can get 8 of on tap down at the DNVR bar, or you can try dozens of their flavors down at their source, the Farmhouse in Littleton, where they have all of their beers available to you. Highly recommended if you haven't been down there. You can even get $5 off when you use the DNVR code for curbside pickup. Or, of course, if you want to stay local, you can look up the Breck Beer Locator and find Breckenridge Brewery beer near you. And, of course, we have Green Mountain Dental Group as well, the best family dentist in the Denver metro area, located in Lakewood, just 15 minutes from downtown. Super easy to get to, and when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, they're giving away a free Sonicare toothbrush. That's right. All you have to do is take care of your teeth, and they'll give you a free electric toothbrush to help you do exactly that. So head on over there. They take awesome care of you, send you reminders to let you know when your next scheduled event is, and we'll remind you to get your next one scheduled too. So top to bottom, some great dental coverage for you. Jump on over to Green Mountain Dental Group today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook with Rudo and AJ. So as we get into the offseason, AJ, lists are starting to come out of the top-ranked players at positions from various places. First up, we have NHL Network's list of defensemen in the league. It's
a little hot takey.
It's a little bit. I don't really have any problems with their 1, 2, and 3 being Hedman 1, Yossi 2, Carlson 3.
Do we have it?
Yeah, here I can pull it up. At least the top 10 anyway. Bam.
Yeah, I think Hedman at 1 is fine.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really have any problem. I think Seth Jones is a little overrated. I would probably have Hamilton in my top 3, but I've always been a really big Dougie believer.
In your top 3,
I would have him ahead of Carlson. Yeah.
Look, I'm willing to agree that Carlson at 3 is 100% recency bias based on the season that he had. Wouldn't put Hamilton at 3
though. Okay, I would. He's better two-way than Carlson is, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, all right, that's fine.
But I mean, like, you're talking a guy at 3 or a guy at 4,
right?
At the
top 5, either way, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Cale Makar at 6 is super. Like, you're all in on him.
Yeah.
Like, you've decided that guy is 6th best defenseman in the NHL already. It's hot for me.
I don't mind it at 6. But this is coming from a guy who said, yeah, Makar's going to win a Norris in the next 2 years. So
yeah, I think if this list is considering future and it's considering next, I think we're all kind of
at 15.
Yeah, that they put him. I don't mind him being at 15 because it's still respect for what he's accomplished and still open to the idea that, hey, if the Kings are competitive, maybe Drew Doughty comes out of a 2-year funk and decides that he's good again. Again, we're giving Drew Doughty credit that we do not give any other player in the world.
Yep.
But, okay, whatever. Morgan Riley in the top 20 is stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just way too bad defensively.
Hard to argue.
Like, drives play and is a dynamic offensive dude, but so bad in his own zone. I mean, and I struggle with that one.
Yeah. The thing is, when you go to the fan vote, things get even spicier. As the fan vote has Cale Makar all the way up at 3. So
did Avs fans get a hold of this thing before anybody else? Like, I love Cale Makar. The guy is awesome. He's awesome and he's going to be unbelievable. But to put him in the top 10 today,
I think top 10 is okay. Top 5, you're pushing it.
Like,
I mean, 9th in Norris voting, right? So
having him ahead of Heiskanen, I think, is interesting because I think Heiskanen's a more advanced defender already, like right now.
Defensively, for sure.
And I don't think their offense is like we saw. I mean, Heiskanen was so good in the postseason that it's hard not to think that I would probably have Heiskanen ahead of Makar today. Just like right now, in this very moment,
super interchangeable. Like
6 months from now, I'm never gonna write off Cale Makar. The guy he has all of the superstar DNA, where he could do things that we just haven't seen in the modern era. Like he has that kind of ceiling, and so I don't ever want to seem like I'm writing off Cale Makar. It's just that right now, this particular moment, I would probably have Heiskanen ahead of Makar, but it would be like Carlson and Dougie. Like I would have them right next to each other,
right.
And it would be a difference of one guy's better defensively and one guy's better offensively. I think Heiskanen's offense is closer to Makar's than Makar's defense is to Heiskanen's, and that's the separation for me. Is that what they're better at? Right now, I think Heiskanen's a little better at what he's good at than Makar is.
This fan list is all over the place. They got Slavin for you up in 9th, but then they also have Drew Doughty in 7th.
And Seth Jones is a great player, but he's not that good.
This doesn't quite drift into the elite category, maybe, but 11 through 20, you still have Quinn Hughes around 12.
I mean, Alex Pietrangelo at 14.
Yeah, that's pretty criminal.
John Klingberg, even in the top 20, is insane.
Yeah.
I think I would probably take Torrey Krug over John Klingberg.
It's just, yeah, the defense isn't there. But that
and the guy that's not on either one of these lists, what, does Thomas Chabot not play in the league? Like,
he plays for Ottawa, so he doesn't exist.
He's so good. I love Zach Werenski. I would take Thomas Chabot over Zach Werenski.
Looking through, I want to see the actual NHL list again, because I think the only team that has 2 is Nashville. Carolina as well. Yeah.
And Columbus.
Where's Columbus?
Werenski and Jones.
Oh, Jones, yeah. So we're seeing
top pairings right there. Yeah. I mean, you have Yossi and Ellis, Hamilton and Slavin, although I know that I don't think they actually play together. And then
Jones and Werenski.
Yeah, who have played together for a long time.
Yeah. It's just interesting to see the death of the elite top 4 that we used to see in Nashville, that we used to see, teams are trying to build 4 extremely solid defensemen. And I think a list like this kind of should help set people's expectations, where if you have 2 top 20 defensemen, your defense is extremely good.
Yeah. You're in a really good position.
Yep. So,
I mean, you look at this list. Hedman just won a Stanley Cup. Yossi was in a cup final a couple years ago. Carlson won a cup a couple years ago. Pietrangelo won a cup 2 years ago.
Yep.
And then you get to the guys that haven't really done it yet. Jones, Makar, Hamilton. Chris Letang has multiple cups.
Yep.
McAvoy has been to a cup final. Heiskanen just went to a cup final.
Yep.
Quinn Hughes, Werenski, those guys, same thing as the other ones, haven't really done it yet. Brent Burns, Shea Theodore, been to cup finals. Drew Doughty has won a couple of them. Shea Weber, I don't know how deep he ever actually got in the postseason.
Yeah, second round maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
he wasn't. He's
been
Nashville right before they got good. Yeah,
he's been a Hall of Fame. I think he's had a Hall of Fame career.
An elite player, no doubt. But
yeah, and then then you get a little deeper into this list, and Carlson been to the Eastern Conference Finals at least.
Yeah.
Ellis, same thing he's been to a cup final, and Morgan Riley doesn't know what the second round looks like. So the point is that when you start talking about having a top defenseman, there's a strong correlation between team with elite defensemen, team
Going
success.
Playoffs.
Yeah. Exactly. And, if Bowen Byram can get into this list, if Sam Girard could get into this list,
yep.
Even with Cale Makar, they're going to be really, really a heavy load out west. But any steps forward from the rest of those guys, and
they're scary.
We didn't mean for it to turn this into this, but so often our shows turn into, guys, the Avs are really good.
It's
unavoidable truth.
It's weird, right? It's weird to me because I've spent years on YouTube being like, all right, look, play down the Avs. I think they're decent this year, but there's a reason you play the games. They have to prove that they're good. And
I think they have.
And they have. And suddenly every move they make seems to make them better, at least on paper. And they just Sakic seems to have knocked it out of the park in the offseason again this year. And you're looking at this team and you can't not think that this team is good enough to win a Stanley Cup. Will they? Of course you don't know. But on paper, this team is just one of the best in hockey, full stop. So we're going to talk about it because that's the facts until it isn't.
Yeah, this is why those guys on Reddit call us fanboys.
Yeah. Every time I see that, I'm like, did you listen to our podcast during the season when they lost games? And we
it kind of blows me away because I'm like, it's funny that we get called the homers and fanboys and all this, but it's like, of the media outlets covering the team,
one of the most critical.
Well, I think we're the ones that I and obviously it's easy for us to believe this, but I think we're the ones that are the most fair.
Yeah, I do my best to take my bias out of it, or if I'm not taking my bias out of it, I usually say, look, I really like Andrei Burakovsky.
Yeah, and because it's like, hey, we'll draw a line between personally I feel this way or that way.
Yeah.
But these are still the possibilities. It's still very realistic that, these three things happen. Philip Grubauer is never the same, and he's not a starting caliber goaltender no matter what I personally believe. Whatever, right? Just pick an example of any of these things that we've talked about. Things that could go different over time. Yep. But we could spend a whole show about how media has changed over time and how people, fans of covering teams in a professional manner has just changed the landscape. It's just a different world.
Yep.
Also, I go Caps. Burakovsky's better in Colorado than he was in Washington. Sorry.
It's not even close, to be honest.
But he won a cup in Washington, so feather in your cap, sir or lady.
All right.
Let's talk goalies.
Yeah, we do got to take our second period break before we get into the goalies. With Chevalier and Morgan, both Mike and Virginia have been in the business for over 15 years now, so they are extremely experienced. You can reach them by calling Virginia directly at 303-257-6578 or go to DNVRmortgage.com. When you go to DNVR Mortgage, you can sign up for a raffle to win free DNVR merch, either a shirt or a hat. So go there and jump on that, and also get yourself set up for a free consultation with Mike and Virginia, who are not only diehard Broncos fans and CSU alums, but they've supported DNVR for a long time as members as well. They believe your home is likely one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, so it's vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering short-term and long-term planning goals, investments, and your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for you. Visit them at dnvrmortgage.com. Be sure to get signed up to win that free stuff and get a free consultation to assess all of your options. Excuse me. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. All right. Goaltenders. The Hockey Guy, our fellow YouTuber, released his list of the top goalies in the NHL. So we figured we'd come back with some of ours as well. He has some pretty interesting ones. I don't really disagree with his top 2 anyway.
I think the top 5 is fine. I have no issues with the top 5. You can move them around any way that you want. The top 5, I think my top 5 would probably look pretty similar to that.
A similar player. I struggle with Price at 3.
It's just that playoff performance, man. I mean, it's just anytime you start to count out Carey Price and you're like, he doesn't have it.
Yep.
He turns around and it's like,
well, dropped a 930 on you.
Yeah, like I'm just done counting out Carey Price until his career is over, or until he has an extended stretch of mediocrity.
Fair enough.
That's just it for me. He's a top 5 goaltender until I arbitrarily decide he's not.
Appreciate you doing the legwork for us. Vaguely sober. Took the screenshot straight from the DNVR Lounge. Come join us if you haven't yet. So let's move into this second range because things start to get a little bit weirder. I'm honestly okay with Bishop at 6, assuming health.
I mean, I have said that he's the most underrated goaltender of the last decade. I feel that way, but I still think there are guys behind him that I would take. I would take Robin Lehner.
I think Lehner is the only one you can make a legitimate case for over him.
I'd probably take Darcy Kemper.
But
that is all about lack of trust in him getting healthy and staying healthy.
Sure.
So that's where these rankings are interesting because it's like, how do you gauge?
How much do you believe in health and when he's healthy, his play? Yeah.
Yeah. But I still have Ben Bishop as a top 10 goaltender, like pretty comfortably.
Where things get a little crazy for me are 7 and 8 with Korpisalo and Hart.
Yeah, it's buying in on Carter Hart. Now, Carter Hart's been a top prospect for a long time.
Yep.
He's taken the starting job in Philly. He's done a good job with it. There's plenty of reason to think that Carter Hart is ascending these rankings.
Yeah.
I don't have a huge problem with him at 8. But there are guys with longer track records behind him that I would like more. I would definitely take Freddie Anderson. I would take Kemper. I would probably even take Bobrovsky over Hart for today.
I mean, I think you could talk me into Hart up there, but you're still betting on the future, right?
It's still almost entirely a future.
If I wanted a goalie right now for this coming season, I'd take Lehner or Anderson over him. But if I'm
Kemper.
Probably Kemper too. But if I'm looking at the long-term franchise, you'd be awfully tempted to take Hart.
Yeah.
And then Korpisalo, I just don't understand this. Like, yes, he had a very good season that he split with Elvis Merzlikins in Columbus, and great, but you're taking a big swing at the fences putting that dude in the top 10. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me, to be honest. If I was GM, I would be super wary of Korpisalo. I'll put it that way.
This is one where you just kind of shrug this off as recency bias.
Yep.
He had a great postseason, and that was it. But he didn't even hard win the job.
Yep.
From Merzlikins. They split that.
Yep.
They split it during the season. They split it during the playoffs. You can't even say he's the best goaltender. I don't know how you could say he's the 7th best goalie in the league. He's not even clearly the best goaltender on his team.
Yep.
But not have Merzlikins somewhere else on this list. If you're buying in on what Korpisalo did, you have to buy in on what Merzlikins did.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't super buy into the half season that Merzlikins played either. But
this is what I'm saying. I wouldn't have either one in the top 16.
Right, exactly. So kind of a hard sell for me. You get to Markstrom at 9. I think he's in this range, but I'd have Lehner ahead of him for sure.
I'd have
Kemper.
I'd have both Lehner, Anderson, and Kemper ahead of him.
I think it's a conversation between Anderson and him, but sure.
Bobrovsky's getting drilled for the 1 year in Florida
Yep.
And ignoring like an excellent career.
Yep.
How much is it? Is just it was just a bad year in Florida,
right?
Because it was a bad year.
If
but,
he puts up a 920 next year, he could jump back up into the top 5. Like
right then, all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, that was the anomaly because he's right back to the guy that he has been for the majority of his career.
Yeah.
This list is almost entirely recency bias.
Yep. I agree.
Outside of the top couple of guys who I think are all
and randomly putting Varley at 16, but
well, and Varley is one where it's like, if you're gonna go so heavy on recency bias, why isn't Varley higher on this list?
Dude just made a conference finals.
He was outstanding during the regular season and the playoffs.
Yeah, and then putting Binnington ahead of him is just insane.
It's like, okay, so you're buying in not in on the year that he had, but you're buying in on the year before where he was fantastic from January to through the end of the season.
Yep.
That's it. Like, you're buying in on just that.
I struggle with Varley at 16 when you have Ben Bishop at 6 because Varley's biggest flaw is injuries, just like Bishop.
Yeah.
So,
well, and Varley, if you look at like career save percentages and stuff, like Varley's right in there.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's having Mackenzie Blackwood on here is insane.
Yeah, that too is just
because you can't make a cogent argument for Mackenzie Blackwood over even Philip Grubauer.
Look, Blackwood, I think, is a feel-good story that he's made an NHL career for himself.
Well, he's like, that guy was a top prospect.
Sure, but it was a pretty long path for him to finally break out.
But like, I mean, you talk about long path. Markstrom's been a top prospect for 10 years.
That's true.
But this is also why you talk about a 30-year-old goaltender differently than you do a 30-year-old skater.
Yep.
Because goaltenders are just different eggs when it comes to the aging curve and when they're good. Yep. So that if you get a guy that's Carter Hart's age, like, you're set. You're in amazing position.
You ride that dude for a decade.
Right. But like with Blackwood, again, you're talking about, you are completely all in on 3 months for Mackenzie Blackwood. You're ignoring the rest of it and saying, I know he was a high pick. I know he was a top prospect. I know it's taken a little bit of time, but now that he showed a really high level of play for a couple of months, boom, it's real.
Yeah.
Like, it's all in on that being 100% real. And we know with goaltenders, like, this list 2 years from now, this list could be the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, because goalies are just nonsense.
Because some of these guys could be like Jordan Binnington could be out of the league in 2 years.
There are multiple guys on this list that could be out of the league in 2 years.
Because they're not, like, established. I think I've said that I think that Grubauer is a top 15-ish starter. This list proves that to me.
Yep.
Because if I would take him over certainly Blackwood, I would take him over Binnington, I would take him over Korpisalo.
Yep, I agree.
And I would have him on the same level as a Markstrom, Varley, Bob. And
even then, with the guys you have on the list, there's enough of a conversation where if Bob has another down year, Grubauer's going to be ahead of him. If Kemper stops the magic he had in Arizona, Grubauer's going to be ahead of him.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the other side of that coin is Grubauer puts up an 880 next year, and he's nowhere near the top 15.
Then the Avs are going shopping for a goalie.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just so hard to gauge goaltending, man. Outside of the few, like a Vasilevsky, like a Hellebuck, like a Gibson, that are rock solid, consistent types. And even Hellebuck has been a bit up and down, honestly. But
and his down was still like
pretty
solid.
Good. Yeah,
it's just that his up has been like Vesna's.
Yeah, exactly.
So him even being at 2 is like, the dude is so good.
Yep.
And it's funny because you're not even considering a guy like Corey Crawford, who I think has still been really good since coming back from injuries. He's just playing on an absolutely terrible Chicago team.
You could probably throw him in the same Grubauer conversation.
What do you do with that guy? Now he's going to go to New Jersey.
Yep.
To take Mackenzie Blackwood job,
right. What's Blackwood going to do then?
Right. It's kind of a just sort of a weird spot that they're in.
Yeah.
And you're looking around at who else isn't on that list that you might consider. Samsonov in Washington is a guy that you have to love.
I mean, yeah, right. And those are guys that are currently breaking into the league. 3 years from now, we could be saying, Justus Anonen's a top 10 goalie. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Shesterkin in New York. The other New York with the Islanders, they've got their Russian kid too, who finally came over and is a top prospect.
Well, I mean, Florida has Spencer Knight in the wings.
Yeah. Well, in Vancouver has Thatcher Demko behind Braden Holtby. That's going to be an interesting situation too. Because the Thatcher Demko hadn't really done a whole lot, but he's been a top prospect, and then all of a sudden he's insane in the postseason, and they're like,
has a good 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they're like, we're not signing Jacob Markstrom because we don't want to protect him in expansion.
It's like, okay, dude.
All right, dude. Hey.
That's your nest. You just got to live with it.
Well, and swapping that out for Holtby, I thought that was a good piece of business.
Sure.
But they have to be right about it. If Markstrom blows up in Calgary and he ends up being awesome and Holtby continues to slide and Demko never takes the job, you're like,
mistake.
That costs you who knows how many years in the prime of Pettersson and Hughes.
Yep.
So goaltending, it's very unpredictable. Colorado didn't have a guy on there, but they, as a team, had the 4th highest save percentage there last season. So it's like
the ever-present plight of an NHL GM. Just don't be wrong.
Yeah, that's it. And Matt Murray signed a $6 million deal. He's not on that list. We haven't even talked about it.
Yeah, well, that contract was a yikes.
UC Saros, guy was a top backup, and he's been an okay starter. We're not even talking about him in here.
Yep. So, who knows? Next season, some rando could have a 930 and they win a Vezina, and all of a sudden they're in the top 5.
Right.
So, we'll see. Goalies are voodoo. Y'all know the drill with that. We do got to wrap things up for the day as we hit the hour mark here with DraftKings Sportsbook. With the season in full swing and the action still unfolding, head over to DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. With so many storylines across both professional and collegiate sports, now is the time to check out all things DraftKings Sportsbook has to offer. If you haven't tried the app yet, head to the App Store now because you don't want to miss this. To celebrate this Sunday's action, DraftKings is ensuring all new users are covered up to $100 in bets. That's right, $100 risk-free covered on Sunday. So be sure to make your bets because you will get your money back if they don't pan out for you. Denver's taking on Atlanta this weekend in a big clash, so that's a great one to bet on there. Of course, you can bet on all sorts of crazy stuff: football, basketball, table tennis, European hockey, you name it, even esports if that's your thing. You can bet on all of it over at DraftKings Sportsbook. So jump on over there, get your bets in, download that top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code RAINBOW when you sign up to get this can't-miss offer. DraftKings Sportsbook is insuring your Sunday bets up to $100 with that Rainbow code when you sign up for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Risk-free coverage paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. That's going to do it for us. Thank you to everyone for watching, listening, however you consume the pod as always. We will be back tomorrow as well, probably continuing to look around the league. And yeah, should be a fun rest of the week. hopefully we'll have Evan on for Free Skate Friday as AJ will leave us for a few days to go quarantine in Canada like a good boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for today's show, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.